Welcome to Ancestral Wisdom, where the wisdom of the past guides our future. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the story of the giant Thrym and the ways that this story has been misinterpreted, and I'll give you some of the keys to unlock the symbols of this story so that you can understand what the story really means and what it has to teach us. So, first of all, if you're new to the channel, oftentimes, either through an interpretation of the ruins or through the interpretation of different stories in our mythology, I try as best I can, given the knowledge that I have, which is by far not complete, um, to unlock the real meaning behind many of the stories in our mythology, which have been obscured by time and perhaps intentional efforts to obscure them. And I do that by looking at the etymology of certain words in the stories and the symbolic nature of all of the different parts of the story to try to figure out what it actually means, instead of it being some sort of outlandish story about uh, eight-legged an eight-legged horse flying through the sky and being something that people actually believed. These literal stories in the past, uncovering the way in which our ancestors used symbols to encode wisdom into storytelling in order to be able to pass that wisdom on through generations. And so the story of Thrym is a very interesting story. On the surface, it seems silly. Let's just briefly recap the story of Thrym, the giant. Well, Thor went to sleep one day. He woke up, his hammer was gone. And Loki went to see if it was in the land of the giants, and he asked Thrym about it. And it turned out that Thrym took Thor's hammer, buried it underground, and that the only way to get it back was for Freya to be brought to him so he could marry Freya. Well, Freya didn't want to go, even though Thor and some of the other gods, they said, "Yeah, Freya, come on, marry this guy." She didn't want to go, obviously, and so Thor dressed up like Freya and went and tricked Thrym into putting the hammer on the table, and then Thor revealed himself by grabbing the hammer and slaying all of the giants. So on the surface, this is a strange tale of intrigue and cross-dressing. But what is it really? What does it really mean? Well, first we have to understand that Thor is of the Aesir, and his hammer is a force of order. It's the beating of the heart. It's the force which banishes or at least tames chaos and protects the divine and the noble, the gods, from the forces of chaos which threaten in the world. Well, what is chaos? Well, the giants, the Aetons, are symbols of chaos. You could think of that as the yin yang symbol, where the white is order and the black is chaos. Well, Loki lives among the gods, but Loki is born of the giants. So Loki is like the black dot in the white side of the yin yang symbol. And he is the chaos within the realm of the gods that helps to balance the realm of the gods a bit. So, all right, we have the Thor's hammer, the symbol of order, which has been stolen. The beating of the heart, the ordering of things the way that they should be, has been stolen by an agent of chaos and buried underneath the ground, quite a long way underneath the ground as well. And who was it buried by? Thrym, the king of the giants, whose name means something like rumble or noise in the original language. And so it's not music, it's noise, right? Music is notes ordered so that they have a positive effect on us. Noise is dissonance. And just like a magic spell can have power to heal and protect, and a curse can have the power to harm. Music, harmonic music, harmony, and powerful positive vibrations can have the effect of a magic spell, but noise has the opposite effect. And you could, of course, look at that scientifically and expose someone to noise for large periods of time and measure their stress hormones, and I'm sure that you would find that noise has a chaotic effect on the mind and psyche. Anyway, so Thrym, rumble, noise is that force of chaos. What does chaos need to fully reign? Well, chaos needs to eat up everything. It needs to eat up order. And it needs to gain hold of and dominance over beauty. See, if if the forces of chaos, they can take over everything, but if they take over beauty, what they and Freya is the symbol of beauty, which Thrym wants to take as a wife. If they take over beauty, they take away the incentive of us who are trying to aspire to be the gods. They take away our incentive to fight for order. The only way that we will fight for order is if we have something to fight for. And Freya, the symbol of beauty, is that something to fight for. So if Thrym can take Freya for his wife, if chaos can conquer beauty, then instead of this balance between chaos and order that makes up our world, chaos will win and there will be nothing left. So they can't let Thrym marry Freya. What do they do instead? Well, they dress Thor up like Freya. Well, what does this mean? Well, Thor is the symbol of the rain, the seed, the masculine aspect of fertility. And Freya is one of the symbols of the earth, of the feminine aspect of fertility, right? So you have Thor, the seed, inside of the shell, which is the clothing and the aspect of Freya. So Thor dressing up like Freya is the male fertility inside the female fertility. It's the rain drop piercing into the earth. It's the seed being placed into the ground. And that symbol of growth and rejuvenation and birth and the coming of the spring is exactly what's needed to overcome the chaos of the descent of winter. So when winter comes, the ground freezes, and the heart of life that is in this world is underneath the ability of this earth to provide the richness that we need to survive is buried under the layer of frozen earth. We need for the thaw to take place in the spring. We need to be able to bring that life force back up out of the soil, to grab that hammer from the earth, and to reignite the growth once again. And this story is a reenactment of the rejuvenation of the planet after a harsh, freezing winter, the coming of the spring, the planting of the seed, and the ability for us to engage in the ordering of our world once again after the chaos of the winter and the chaos that the winter spirits wreaked on our ability to be able to order our world. So it sounds like a strange story. It sounds like a crazy story. It sounds ridiculous, like a cross-dressing intrigue, but it's not. It's a secret encoded in a narrative. Now, the interpretation that I just gave is one level of interpretation. You could take that interpretation and go in other directions with it as well. So you can talk about the way in which those cycles work within our own personal spheres. You can talk about, I've heard this myth interpreted in a biological way, of course. If we can say that this is related to the spring and rebirth, you can also say that it's related to the pregnancy and the birth of a child and everything associated with that pregnancy. Um, so you can definitely interpret this in many different ways on many different levels. I just interpreted it on one particular level, and it's possible that there are some aspects of my interpretation that are not complete. I would love if anyone, especially anyone who has an extensive knowledge of etymology or Norwegian or Proto-Nordic or Indo-European, would think about the interpretation that I gave and offer any insights they might have as to how that interpretation could be improved. For sure, I would most certainly welcome that. And I hope this helped you to see not only the idea that there is meaning and mystery in this myth, which often goes unnoticed, almost always goes unnoticed, but the same thing is true of every myth, every story passed down from our ancestors. If you have the keys to unlock those mysteries, then the wisdom is there for the taking. Know that always.